Coming up on West Side Stories, we take a look at two big media companies in a war over fake news.
And we'll check in with a Muskegon organization that gives away free books.
We'll also take you on a ghost hunt. That's right, a ghost hunt at a bar in Otsego.
All that and lots more, next on West Side Stories.
West Side Stories is produced by students from the Multimedia Journalism program at Grand Valley State University. Support also comes from the School of Communications. Inspiring thought, perfecting practice.
Welcome to West Side Stories. I'm Alexandria Kelly.
And I'm Mina Tai.
It looks like the battle between two media giants is escalating.
That's right, Alex. The Sinclair Group and CNN are attacking each other over statements both have made about fake news. Reporter Callie Hubbard tells us more on how the whole thing got started.
The sharing of biased and false news
has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
A company that owns nearly 600 channels and 200 TV stations. But did you know that they've been reading one script? A script that some claim brings right-wing propaganda to local broadcast stations.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
This is the Sinclair Broadcast Group, a company that's based out of Maryland and has affiliations with all major networks. They are one of the largest television companies in the country. Last month, Deadspin, a sports news and blog website, produced a video on Sinclair that went viral. It was viewed over 7.5 million times. According to the Washington Post, President Trump had defended the company. He said other TV networks such as CNN, NBC, and ABC should get awards on reporting fiction. After watching the video, I was curious to see how many people had seen it. I was shocked by how many people had no idea.
So do you know anything about the Sinclair Broadcast Group?
No. Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about trouble and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 So what is your reaction to this video?
Sad.
I think it's extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Scary.
It makes you less trustful, I think, of the media.
It's very sad and disheartening to see that the people who we so trust could be telling us false news.
Is that legal?
To our democracy.
That's not legal?
Well, what do you guys think about this? Do you think it should be legal?
No.
Do I think that there's some mild form in layman's term, brainwashing? Yeah.
I think that's really kind of creepy in a way because they're all owned by the same company.
Although the Sinclair Broadcast Group took a lot of heat for making their anchors read the same script on fake news, many students we talked to agreed fake news is a serious problem. Multimedia journalism major Brendan McMahon says reporters have an individual responsibility to get the story right.
Try to find valid news sources and check your facts, because I think a lot of the industry is coming down to speed rather than, accuracy.
You should know that not all media companies are like this. Joel Seaman, another GVSU student, agrees. The video taught him that it's important to not only trust one media outlet, but to collect facts from all over.
I try to pull from various sources. I actually do I like listening to the BBC a lot because I like to get kind of an outside third perspective on what's happening in the United States or elsewhere too, not just the United States versions.
The battle between the Sinclair Group and CNN is centered around how each claims the other is misleading the public about fake news. Ironically, students are saying that battle has forced them to look for news from other media outlets. From West Side Stories, I'm Kelly Hubbard.
We'll keep you posted on the war of words between CNN and the Sinclair Group.
Coming up next, reporter Justin Pelham brings us a story on one local organization that is giving away free books.
There's nothing better than to see the look on somebody's face when you tell them they can take these books home for free.
Operating on the belief that everyone deserves to have books in their lives, Embrace Books is a free bookstore that is open to anyone who walks in the door.
You can come in and you can shop, but it's absolutely free. You're going to pay nothing when you walk out the door, regardless of whether you take one book or 100 books.
Greaves' passion for books is what has helped Embrace Books continue to grow.
It was so sad to see boxes of books at garage sales or to be thrown out in a dumpster because nobody wanted these books. And I knew that people wanted books and wanted to have access to books. We just needed to make them available. So we started with a couple thousand books, and it has grown year over year since then.
Where do all the books for Embrace Books come from?
So 90% of our donations come from individuals from across West Michigan. We also have received some donations from libraries. After their book sales are done, they will donate what's left over to us. But majority of it is individuals who believe in our mission and really want their books to stay in the community once they're done with them.
The books in the store cover all genres, so there is something for everyone.
So we have everything from board books all the way up to college textbooks and everything in between. Our most popular books for children are children's picture books and chapter books for children and young adults. And then we also have a lot of demand for the nonfiction books like cookbooks and biographies.
Volunteers play an important role in helping make the books accessible to the community.
Our volunteers are usually people who have come in and used the bookstore and want to be able to give back to the community. We also partner with AmeriCorps.
Our members have done everything from helping to build the bookshelves in there to general sorting. We sort books into genres along with other volunteers that come here. And we stamp the books to say they're free from this program. I can't put into words how awesome it is. Not only for just myself, because my entire personal library is from here. But building awareness around literacy is so important and impactful, and I don't think there's enough of it throughout the whole country.
Embrace Books has big plans for the future and their books.
We've got about 15,000 books on our shelves now, and we'd love to see that continue to grow, our community continue to utilize the books and the resources that we have. And eventually down the road, we would love to have a mobile bookstore to be able to take that to events and other opportunities to get more books into the community for people who can't get to us.
From Muskegon, I'm Justin Pelham.
If you're interested in checking out Embrace Books, they are open again this Saturday at noon at the Front Porch Church in Muskegon.
This time of year may seem cold, wet, and rainy for most of us, but for some crazy critters, that's just the perfect weather. Linnea Martinez explains why in our weekly science segment.
A pamphlet goes out, it says vernal pools, it has a picture of a cool salamander and maybe some insects, and suddenly we have 35 to 50 people show up.
If Eric Elgin sounds excited, that's because he is. There's a good crowd here today at the Hemlock Crossing Nature Education Center, but that's not uncommon, Melanie Mannion says.
I work with our Nature Education Center in doing what we call service-based learning projects, where we get students out to learn about nature through hands-on activities of removing invasives. But we also have a lot of volunteers that are learning about their world and their environment by actually getting out there and helping steward it or care for it.
Those volunteers are at the center right now, going through special training to become citizen scientists. Soon, they'll gear up in mud boots and waders to head out into the forest. What they're looking for are vernal pools, which are special kinds of ecosystems that only appear in the spring.
And so a vernal pool is a wetland that is fleeting. It's only there for a portion of the year, usually in the springtime. Only lasts for a few weeks and then it dries up.
They're the coolest thing. You know, when I was a kid, I always thought, oh, it's a mud puddle, you know, but there's so much more. They are just full of life.
According to Lee, that mud puddle that you almost stepped in is actually home to thousands of critters.
And those are all the little larvae inside there.
It's always like, a kid at a candy shop, and I'm always just amazed at all these really neat species that live in them. And I want to learn more about them. I didn't know that they were important, or I didn't know that there was fairy shrimp, living in them.
While the name may sound like something out of a fantasy novel, fairy shrimp do, in fact, exist. And they're really cool.
That's the fairy shrimp, and that's that, you'll see in that little back swimmer, kind of. Yeah. And that's all of their gills, too, so they'll swim floating on their back, and they'll just kind of swim down like that.
These creatures aren't the only species that call vernal pools their home.
And see these egg masses of frogs and salamanders. And this time of year, they just explode, not only with life, but with the sounds of spring.
Volunteers are taught to map and identify vernal pools in their area. This information is essential for biologists who study the ecosystem.
The most important thing is to just let people know that there is such a thing as a vernal pond. And that it's not just a mud puddle, because oftentimes people either drain these or they'll alter the hydrology, the groundwater, and how it moves so that they disappear.
Programs like these, Elgin says, could be game changers.
We don't have a lot of information on vernal pools here in Michigan, and in order to protect something, we need to know about it. And so this citizen science program is great at gathering that data that can be used at many different levels to help protect them.
But what's in it for us? What makes these pools worth protecting?
It's part of Michigan's heritage to have these organisms, in our state, and it brings a lot of richness to the state.
There are a lot of species that live in a vernal pond, and if you transfer it into a pond, you lose those species. When that pond is lost, all those species that were dependent on that are also lost.
While the program is a volunteer-coordinated conservation effort, the best part about doing this, Mannion says, is that it brings people of all ages closer to nature.
For me, looking at something like this, it kind of looks like a dirty pond. But then you find out that it is just as, she described it as biodiverse as the coral reef. That's amazing to me.
So the next time you find yourself caught in what seems to be a mud puddle, think twice about what's beneath your feet. A thriving ecosystem could be living right under your boot. In Ottawa County, I'm Linnea Martinez.
Tulip time brings hundreds of thousands of people to Holland every year, so it's important that the flowers look their best. How are they doing this year? Kendra Jarsma answers that question with the following Tulip report.
We are right around the 500 different variety mark right now. With that, each year we get between 10 and 12 new varieties, but we also retire some out.
Velders is Holland's largest tulip farm. With around 25 acres of 5 million tulips, the Velders are some of the most knowledgeable people in West Michigan about tulips and Dutch culture. Jacob's grandfather began planting the flower in 1950 as a hobby, starting with only 100 red and 300 white tulips. Today, the farm grows daffodils, hyacinths, and crocuses as well.
We definitely have a few more than where he started with, and it's definitely a lot better presentation.
Tulips are fairly easy plants because they can grow without a lot of care.
And they're one of the hardiest plants out there because you can literally just throw them in the ground, don't water them, fertilizer them, and they'll come up, but they're not going to look nearly as good as if you water them and all that.
With their years of expertise, the Velders can usually tell when the peak bloom of the season will occur and how the tulips will look during tulip time. While some plants are extremely vulnerable in cold weather, tulips can handle the low temperatures in West Michigan lately, so blooms are looking good for tulip time.
It's going to be right on target, right during tulip time, should be peak color. All this cold is doing it is like pushing the peak bloom from, let's say, a Tuesday to a Wednesday. It's not affecting it very much, really. It's going to be affecting it a little bit more when they're by sidewalks and things like that.
Sidewalks of brick and concrete warm up faster than the ground, especially when the sidewalk is by a house or other building. So tulips planted by them absorb the heat and bloom a little faster.
So this cold is actually helping those tulips stay back longer so they'll bloom for longer. Because they've stayed cold, it's snowing in April, they might be a couple days farther back than if we didn't have the snow.
To find out when the tulips will bloom, the Velders look at the weather in the Netherlands.
If they have a real harsh winter, lots of snow, it means we're going to have a lighter one over here. So when we try and plant, we try and adjust to that. So if we know it's going to be lighter, not as cold, we try and plant more of the later varieties to push it back so people can actually see tulip blossoms and not just the stems or the petals on the ground.
During tulip time, Velders is a busy place. Visitors can walk through the flower gardens and look at the Velders herd of bison and purchase Dutch items like Delftware and wooden shoes.
On an average during tulip time, when it's very busy here, we will have between 100,000 and 600,000 people walk through the door.
In their store, they have a scale model of an authentic Dutch windmill and tools used to make windmills on display. Visitors can also watch Delftware and wooden shoes be made. While they have a machine that can make wooden shoes, Jacob knows how to do it by hand.
I learned from a man who was taught by kind of like a sensei in the Netherlands with all the little tips. So luckily I was able to get his tools and all that, so I'm one of the few people that can do it from a block of wood to a finished pair of shoes.
For those coming to Holland and Velders during tulip time, Jacob has some advice.
Be prepared to walk. Bring your good walking shoes, take lots of photos, and just enjoy the weather, enjoy the atmosphere of it all.
In Holland, I'm Kendra Jarsma.
Tulip time takes place from May 5th to the 13th this year. To stay updated on the flower blooms and heights, you can visit velders.com.
The American Red Cross supplies about 40% of the nation's blood. But so far this year, donations are down, and that's a problem. Alexandria Kelly has more with the story.
Since there's a shortage, people always need blood, obviously. And so it's just super helpful to help others out.
Every 2 seconds, someone in the United States needs blood, and approximately 36,000 units of red blood cells are needed every day. This is according to American Red Cross. Blood drives are hosted every day across the nation to supply blood for those in need of it, whatever the circumstance. Right now, blood has been in short supply. The Red Cross says severe weather has had a negative impact on donations already this year, and seasonal illnesses and holiday schedules have collectively contributed to more than 28,000 fewer donations than what is needed. Steve Swafford is a collection supervisor for American Red Cross and goes around to different blood drive events each day to supervise.
But hearing people's stories, somebody donors come in and their aunt or uncle, brother, sister have cancer, they need blood or something like that. Those are good reminders. Those are usually the good days.
Swafford was at the recent blood drive on GVSU's campus. He said campus blood drives make an impact on future generations, especially now that blood is being donated less than the generation before college students now.
It's a good habit to, I think, build from a young age. The older generation has given, gallons. It's good to kind of pass it down and develop that habit at a young age. It's important to make a difference in your community.
According to the Red Cross, car accidents put a big strain on blood reserves. A single car accident victim can require as many as 100 pints of blood, while one donation is approximately only 3 pints of blood. Julie LeBlanc, once a healthy young woman traveling the world dancing, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia about 1.5 years ago and is no stranger to needing blood and platelet transfusions. LeBlanc has had multiple transfusions, but experienced a moment where blood was not easily accessible to her when she first started getting sick and got stuck in a clinic in Bridgetown, Barbados. The residents of the island were notified over the radio that someone was in need of a blood transfusion quickly. Justin Pelham is a Grand Valley student who has also had multiple blood transfusions, but for a different circumstance. Pelham was injured while deployed in Iraq while he served in the Army. If there were no blood available at the time, I believe I could have died, said Pelham. Whether blood is needed locally, nationally, or internationally, Mitchell Cooper is an athletic training major at Grand Valley who wants to help and has been no stranger to helping out before.
Since I have O-positive blood, it's one of the universal donors, and so it can help out lots of people.
Cooper said that even though getting the finger poke at the beginning to test your iron level isn't that bad, it's the worst part.
Not to brag or anything, but my iron was at a 16.
Whether you know someone who has been in need of blood before, or you simply want to help those in need, according to Red Cross, a couple pints can go a long way. Reporting for West Side Stories, I'm Alexandria Kelly.
The American Red Cross is asking for your help in restoring their supply of blood. To find a donation center near you, visit the Red Cross website.
If you like scary stories, you're sure to like this one. Reporter E17 takes us on a ghost hunt in Otsego.
In Western superstition, Friday the 13th is considered to be an unlucky day. Some superstitions take it further and consider it a day where spooky occurrences happen. A concerned family in Otsego recently decided to get rid of the unusual disturbance they were experiencing in their restaurant. We follow Grand Rapids ghost hunters on this investigation.
We are heading towards the restaurant that they were talking about, and I'm pretty nervous. I'm not really sure what to expect because honestly the description didn't say that much.
So at 5 years old, most kids are told there's no such thing as ghosts. Oh, I was reassured the opposite.
Sensitive people are those who can pick up stimulation and small signals that other people can't.
Dan's been sensitive all his life, as to Ray and James, both pretty much all your life. So that's really, Dan is pretty much a demon detector, where if there's some evil here, he would get a sense for it.
The investigators say that a lot of what we are used to seeing on TV about paranormal activity is not true.
Catching something on video, you just don't see it very often. You know, depending on the shows that you've seen, like little orbs and stuff, I don't buy 99.5% of it. You know, it's dust.
This is
Grand Rapids ghost hunters offer their services for free and have worked on multiple cases that local media channels have covered.
M-Live was with us that night. We go to places, like I said earlier, where they're so distraught, and families, they don't need extra burden financially. I mean, we put on our sheet that I gave you that we will accept donations, but I can tell you we've never accepted a donation from a family.
The owners of this establishment decided to contact the ghost hunters after they reportedly experienced unusual activity.
The first week we opened, it was right at the beginning, and my wife was working the kitchen. I was actually out here. A can opener that we'd never seen before was launched at her, hit her. She thought it was me, like chucking something at her, because she always throws things at me. I don't really believe in it at all, so I would say I'm not sensitive to it. If I am, I don't know it, because I don't really, to me, like I said, a lot of it is just coincidence. My wife, on the other hand,
I grew up in a haunted home. An elderly woman had died in the back bedroom of my mother's home, and that room stayed consistently cold. She didn't like her furniture rearranged. If you rearranged the furniture, the house was ice cold for weeks. She wasn't very fond of yelling or anger either. So if anybody raised their voice, you'd get a chill up your back.
Snapchat's facial recognition even picked up a face in the basement through Ashley's phone.
it's just the lighting then.
Is there a face there? Yeah. Okay. It's like in the same spot too, except the same stuff isn't there that was there the first time.
Previous owners advised Jared that there had been 2 suicide cases at their establishment.
And that's why we called the Ghost Dave, because that was the gentleman who had committed suicide, I think right around the 50s.
We're here for you, and the best thing you can do now is to show off and give us a sign, nice and loud, where you're hanging out. So just make it as loud as you can, and can you do that now, please?
Electronic voice phenomena are sounds or voices that the digital recorder captures that the naked human ear can't pick up. It's one of the primary sources for a case.
Sort of unfinished business? Those ghosts, they talk at a different rate and a different pitch, so you have to mess with it to get it so you can actually understand it. Usually they all sound the same. It doesn't matter where you're recording, they have a similar quality. And it's like this, it goes, "Get out," or "Leave."
There was some static down in here, and up in the top there was different, in between each room you felt different waves of different emotions, but that could be imprinted, like the residual energy from like people who have lived there. Like if they had a dining room, that could be like a happy feeling, they're having family dinner.
Residual energy are the remains of human emotions in a particular place. Different from ghosts, which are called intelligent spirits, because humans can interact with them.
Disrespecting the dead, it's a very bad idea. I have pictures of members that have been scratched for not being respectful of the dead, and so you got to really be careful. I coach the team to be polite. I try to use please and thank you.
The bar and grill is now closed.
The owners are hoping to sell the establishment soon that, according to the investigation, proved to be demon-free. In Otsego, I'm Ida Tsai.
Great story, Ida. Were you afraid of seeing a ghost?
Well, quite frankly, I have been afraid of ghosts all my life, so it was kind of spooky, yeah.
I would have been very scared. Were you scared, like, walking into the place thinking you might just, like, see a demon?
I was so scared, so scared.
Don't worry, I would be too. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this week's show. I'm Alexandria Kelly.
And I'm Ida Tsai.
From all of us at West Side Stories, thank you for watching our show this season.
We hope to see you again next fall, right here on WGVU.
West Side Stories is produced by students from the Multimedia Journalism program at Grand Valley State University. Support also comes from the School of Communications, inspiring thought, perfecting practice.